Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since we've done one of these videos, and it's really what the channel was basically made on. Last October, I was really busy with the company, and I mentioned that I wanted to hire a script writer that I would commission to write scripts on certain topics. I've used about 10 scripts so far since last year, and to be frank, I just don't really feel comfortable with it. I'm really territorial and a control freak over my channel, and that's why the content and lore videos have been kind of slow, is because I haven't really wanted to use any of the scripts that I've actually had written for me, because it wasn't coming necessarily directly from me like it has been the last 9 years. So that's why I would like to begin an entire new lore run of videos where I read the books and I give you my reviews and breakdowns of each one of them. And in today's book, we're going to be starting with Legacy of the Jedi. So I have hundreds of different Star Wars books, both in physical form and also as ebooks from Kindle. And in today's book, we're going to be going over Legacy of the Jedi, and everything going forwards is going to be back to the way it was. So just my words from my view and written by me. So if there are any books that you would like for me to read going forwards, I'm still going through the NJO books, as I never really quite read them when I was a kid. I would go through a few chapters here and there of different books that I'd get from the library, but I just kind of lost interest in them and got busy or whatever, and I just never really actually finished them. So those are a bit of a dry read, a bit of a long read, and I'm going through them. There's some moments that are more interesting than others. But anyways, in today's video, I would like to start this series off with Legacy of the Jedi, which I've actually really quite enjoyed. It goes back into before The Phantom Menace, and it has 4 different sections of the book. The first is with Dooku, the second is with Dooku and Qui-Gon, then it's with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and then Obi-Wan and Anakin. And the first part is really kind of like Dooku Jedi Lost, where in the beginning you see like a young Dooku with Sifo Dyas, but in this case, it's a much different character. His name is Lorian Nod. And it kind of outlines the overall betrayal that Dooku sees from a friend, and makes you kind of realize the foreshadowing that's going to come with how much of a solo being he is. So let's start right off the bat with the first part of the book, part 1, Dooku and Lorian Nod, where Dooku is not yet the Count that we know. He's a very gifted 13-year-old Padawan in the Jedi Temple. And his best friend, Lorian Nod, is a mischievous, ambitious fellow student who's never quite matched Dooku in force ability and knows it. And to be honest, he's honestly kind of a loser. Like, what he does to Dooku really is not cool. Together, they stumble upon a hidden manual on the Sith holocron, concealed in the personal quarters of Dooku's new master, Dame Cerulean. This book contains warnings, nausea, nightmares, and the effects of viewing the holocron without preparation. And I can kind of see how Dooku Jedi Lost took a lot of inspiration from this part of the book, as in that book they were also going into the restricted section and just getting into trouble. Now, Lorian was very hungry for greatness, and he was desperate to be noticed. He was kind of a attention-seeking kid because, well, Dooku was awarded a master to be trained from, but Lorian wasn't actually chosen. So he felt left out. So to be noticed, he actually does something that's not really good, and he steals the Sith holocron from the temple archives. Kind of like the Ring with Smeagol, he's overwhelmed by its dark energy, and eventually gets found by Jedi Master Oppo Rancisis, where he panics and he basically rats on Dooku and says that it was Dooku's idea. So he betrays his best friend. Dooku is pissed. He is furious. He's heartbroken. His trust is gone. The council later investigates, and Dooku is cleared because, well, he tells the truth that Lorian lied. And that's exactly why Lorian gets expelled. It's not for stealing the book, but it's for actually lying and trying to ruin another Jedi's life. But it doesn't end there. Of course, like, Lorian's pretty much in this whole book, and it's funny, in the end, his redemption actually ends up being completely the opposite of Dooku's. So I'm actually going to break this video down into 4 different parts. The first part, we're going to talk about Dooku's, and then the second part, we're going to talk about Qui-Gon Jinn's and Dooku's, and then we're going to go Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and then Obi-Wan and Anakin. The two boys are pitted against each other later on in a tracking exercise, and the tension, it's very visceral. In the final duel, Dooku wounds Lorian with a training saber, which is a weapon that's not meant to actually injure. So those sabers, those lightsabers that you guys see the younglings use, those actually can't really do anything. So their friendship actually ends in blood. Or, well, in an injury. And so Dooku walks away with a very important lesson, foreshadowing how he's just, a very, very lone wolf later on. And he basically says, in a galaxy crowded with life forms, I am alone. And that's very Dooku. So the damage is very done. Once Dooku makes up his mind, that's it. The next time Dooku sees Lorian, he's not a Padawan anymore. He's actually a pirate. And that happens in the 4th part of the book. So the second part, Dooku and Qui-Gon Jinn, happens years later, where Dooku is now a master and his apprentice is Qui-Gon, full of potential, already deeply attuned to the living force, very unlike Obi-Wan later on, as we see. Their mission is very simple. So they have to protect a senator named Blix Anon, who fears that he's going to be the next victim in a string of senatorial kidnappings. Kind of sounds familiar with episode 2. But nothing is simple when the past comes calling. A distress signal lures them in. A young girl's voice pleads for help, but it's a trick. The ship is a decoy, armed, rigged, and custom built for ambush. The attacker is a masked figure with surgical precision. The ship's armor peels away under pressure, and the senator's safe room is breached. And the moment Dooku sees the attacker's green eyes through the visor, he knows that this is Lorian Nod, his old friend who betrayed him. Dooku is shook, absolutely full of rage, to the point where he actually tries to kill him, and then Qui-Gon stops him. So they trace the sabotage to Kontag, who's the security guy. He's a security firm now outsourcing shady operations to the toxic factory planet of Von Alai. There, Dooku and Qui-Gon are captured. They're drugged, they're bound, and they're locked in a cell. Lorian visits in person, smirks. He's very confident, he's very cocky, he's older now, much more powerful, and still twisted by pride. And he reveals everything, that he sabotaged the ships through Kontag, senators paid for security systems he knew how to bypass, and he did it all with the help of Eero Iridian, a failed politician and Dooku's old acquaintance. Dooku breaks free, and the confrontation is inevitable. A massive duel erupts, Dooku nearly kills him, and not out of defense, but out of rage, anger, hatred. And these are some of his first moments that he's going fully into the dark side that Qui-Gon gets to see. He is seconds from the edge, ready to cross the line into the darkness, and Qui-Gon stops him. His Padawan's voice pulls him back, and Dooku relents. And this scene here reminded me of when Qui-Gon was doing the same thing for Tal, his girlfriend, like his love interest. And it was Obi-Wan's voice. It was Tal's voice, like through the Force, but it was really, I think, just Qui-Gon hallucinating, but you never know, and Obi-Wan bringing him back to reality. The lesson here is crucial that Dooku has begun to lose control. He doesn't see it yet, but the dark side is already whispering. So maybe playing with that holocron wasn't a great idea, but yeah, I guess that's more of Lorian's problem. Alright, so now we're on part 3, and this is with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and this is actually after all of the Xanatos stuff. If you don't know about Xanatos, that was Qui-Gon's apprentice far before Obi-Wan, and we can cover that in another video, but I would like to reread that book because it's been years. So, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon's relationship is actually quite fragile. So Obi-Wan had once left the Jedi Order at this point to help someone on Melita Dawn. He returned, but the trust was already shaken. Their mission leads them to Junction 5. This was a world ruled by fear of its own moon, Della Luna. The moon is rumored to be building a superweapon, the Annihilator. The people of Junction 5 live under a very totalitarian surveillance regime controlled by a group called the Guardians. Citizens are watched, privacy is gone, fear has given way to control. Qui-Gon senses the imbalance, Obi-Wan observes the mechanics, and once again, we see a Jedi Master and Padawan confronting a world being poisoned, not by the Sith, but by fear, paranoia, and silence. Qui-Gon never becomes the cynic Dooku was. He still chooses to believe in compassion, connection, and trust, and this is one reason why Qui-Gon has always been my the character I always wanted to be, but I always felt the most connected to Anakin. So I guess I kind of have like two favorite characters. This arc mirrors Dooku's, but Qui-Gon makes a different choice. He leans into trust, not away from it, even when it hurts. So we can see quite, the differences there between the two. Now, we get into the fourth part of the book, which is quite interesting as Lorian returns, and we can kind of see his redemption a little bit. So this is now in the Clone Wars era. Anakin is Obi-Wan's apprentice, they're veterans, they're battle-scarred, they're emotionally strained, but still holding to the ideals of the Order. During a mission, they encounter an unlikely figure, Lorian Nod. Again, but this time, something's changed. He's not a pirate, he's not a villain, he's a negotiator, working to mediate peace on a war-torn planet. Obi-Wan is very skeptical, Anakin is very rash and suspicious and ready to fight, which is typical, and when a sudden ambush puts Anakin in mortal danger, Lorian throws himself in front of the attack. He dies, saving the very Jedi Order that once expelled him. The boy who once wanted to impress Dooku and corrupted by a Sith holocron to, show off and be better than Dooku, to be noticed, dies protecting Dooku's legacy. Which, in a way, Obi-Wan is Dooku's legacy because Obi-Wan is Qui-Gon's apprentice, who is Dooku's apprentice. So it's kind of cool because Lorian's final act wasn't betrayal, whereas Dooku's final act, not on his part, but he was betrayed. So Lorian is redeemed. I like this book because it covers the main characters, and I like prequels to The Phantom Menace and learning about Dooku. So for me, this was a really easy listen and a read. I was jumping back and forth between the audiobook and also the book itself, the Kindle, and I was just jotting down notes as I was listening, but it was definitely a fun one and a very easy listen. Kind of what I took from the book was that like each generation has their own fair choices to make, and whereas some of them hold on to pain and anger and don't trust people anymore, others let things go and they excel. So for example, Dooku holds on to it and it ends up destroying him, whereas Qui-Gon lets it go and it saves him. And Obi-Wan carries the pain and he tries to teach Anakin not to carry the pain, but Anakin does, and we all know how that ends. And this is one thing I love about George Lucas's Star Wars, is that it shows all of these different life events and choices that people have, yet the different choices that are made along the way and the outcome and the poetic rhyming of each character arc that chooses different things. Whereas, in one moment, let's say Dooku, who chooses to be a little more angry or not forgiving, ends up excelling at, maybe his younger years, but later on has an untimely, very bad demise. Whereas, in the other end, it could be different, like for Qui-Gon Jinn, for example. Hope you guys enjoyed my review and breakdown of the book, and consider checking out Legacy of the Jedi if you want something along these lines. Hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you, always.